All right, well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today on our call about information session for our families regarding the Palisades Cyber Academy for Palisades Middle School. For those of you just joining the call, my name is Dr. Michael Donnelly, and I'm the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment for the district. I work hand in hand with each of our building principals as well as our teachers, K through 12, to help coordinate that program. Just got off of a really awesome presentation with our elementary cyber program and families. And then right now at this concurrent time, there's also one happening for the high school with our high school cyber deans there. Again, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us today. We also recognize that there are a number of folks who are not able to join us, and that is why, just so that you're aware again, that this presentation is being recorded so that it can be married with the presentation, which is online, that you can find if you want to follow along. Of course, we do have a space online where you're able to get updated information, and we're going to continue to develop that webpage for the Palisades Cyber Academy as the year continues. That being said, the focus for this afternoon is going to be for Mr. Filling, our Cyber Dean K through 8, as well as support by our principal, Dr. Scheibenhofer, and our assistant principal, Mr. Spearing, to present with you what this looks like for the middle school student. Keeping in mind that lots of hours and work went into a very important cause, which is doing what's best for our kids. We shared earlier in the summer that our previous Cyber Academy was through a third-party vendor with whom we have an awesome relationship. However, nothing can compare to the curriculum and the instruction and the teaching of our actual classroom teachers. And so we were able to rework, and rework, if that's even a word, the schedule in order to massage that so that we are able to present and provide 100% of our core content curriculum taught by a Palisades teacher for our students, so that our young ladies and gentlemen are able to continue to learn and to grow, and such that will make it easier for them as well, that should at some point in the second semester, when we'll be getting a survey out in November, that should you decide that you would rather come back face to face for the spring, that transition would be seamless because the students are learning the same content. It's just simply some students are in room 201, and some students are sitting at their virtual learning space in the kitchen at their home. And so we want to make sure we could make that transition as easy as possible as well. So again, like I said, whether it is your family would elect to come back for the second semester, again, we will be putting a survey out for that at the end of mid-November for those selections, or at the start of next school year. Fingers are crossed that things will go back to the way that we want them to be, the way that we are as what we understand to be normal. And with that said, I want to also thank each of you on this call for your support and of our teachers, of our administration, and allowing for us to do what we can in order to provide what we feel is going to be an incredibly robust program for our students, for your children, so that Palisades can continue to be as strong as it was, and will always be. And so with that being said, I will be continuing to let folks into the room as they log in, but I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Filling and our middle school administration to introduce themselves, and then at that point, Mr. Filling will then drive the presentation and work through that. At the end, when there's time, for about time that's left over, if there are questions that you feel are general questions for the good of the group that were not answered throughout the purposes of this presentation, then we'll be able to field as many of those as we can. Of course, should you have individual questions for you and your situation and your family, then please don't hesitate in sending that email either, of course, to one of your classroom teachers or to Mr. Spearing, Dr. Scheibenhofer, or Mr. Filling as well, so that they can help to work and guide you through that response as best they can too. Again, I want to thank everyone. I'm very excited that we're going to start our new school year next week. We're looking forward to getting back and having our students back, again, whether it's face-to-face or virtually. That's why we do what we do. It's exciting times. And again, thank you, as always, for your ongoing patience and your support with and of us. And that being said, I'll turn it over to my colleagues at the middle school. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Donnelly, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Carl Scheibenhofer. I'm the proud principal of Palisades Middle School. I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend the next 45 minutes with us as we kind of go through our Palisades Cyber Academy here at the middle school. It's been quite a process this summer, and I think Dr. Donnelly kind of hit everything on the head as far as all the preparation into this. And we are so excited to get the school year started. Monday's coming right around the corner for our incoming sixth graders. Mr. Filling will go through our presentation for you. And again, if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to field those questions. We've spoken to a lot of you throughout the summer as you contacted us, which we're grateful that you have. And Before I turn it over to Mr. Spearing, I must say, waiting for this meeting to start and seeing Hunter and Sean kind of own the room, I feel really good about the Cyber Academy moving forward. I think our kids will be resilient and be able to be very successful in this approach moving forward. So once again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're excited, to return to school this school year, and I will turn it over to Mr. Spearing to introduce himself at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Schreibenhofer. Once again, I want to greet everybody. I'm Rich Spearing, the assistant principal here at Palisades Middle School. I help a lot when it comes to scheduling and lots of things around the building, especially as it relates to students. So we're hoping that we might be able to answer some questions maybe at the end of this. But really, based on what I know needs to get out there and shared with everyone, I'm just going to kind of turn this right over to Mr. Filling so he can begin as our cyber dean, and the presentation that it was definitely a collaborative approach, but that he kind of has managed to put together on pretty short notice. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Filling so we can really get started and get going, as I know people probably have time constraints of their own. So thank you, Mr. Filling.
Okay. I have to really give credit to Dr. Donnelly because he really did a great job on the presentation. And one of the first things I want to tell you is I'm really thankful for all the parent communication that's occurred over the past summer. It's really given us a lot of feedback as far as what parents are looking for and what students need. So I want to thank you for every parent who's contacted me over the past 2 months and really let me know what your concerns were, and it was a pleasure speaking with you. Just a little bit of history. In the past, I know a lot of parents were wondering what the Academy is like, but it's really changed a lot. In the past, the 6th grade students were assigned a third-party vendor, usually when in most cases it was K-12, and then attendance was monitored based upon weekly completion. And then I was responsible for the elementary and middle school for reaching out to families. So in other words, I was a facilitator and also liaison between the vendors and sometimes the teachers at school, but the teachers in 7th and 8th grade really ran the program and did a lot of asynchronous teaching in the past 5 years. That's changed a lot just over the summer. Now our administrative team got really involved in making a schedule that's fully live and virtual for the core classes. So all our classes are taught by middle school teachers, and there's a live component for each subject area, a live course, I should say, for each subject area. So that was a very heavy lift. And there will also be live instruction, in many ways, basically throughout the day, throughout the schedule. And we'll talk about that too. And basically that's every teacher teaching a core subject for 6th and 7th and 8th. We will be monitoring progress for the students. And there's also going to be a lot of demand on the students to keep up with their work and read instructions because, as you know, in a live environment, it's great to ask questions, but a lot of this will still be on students and, to communicate with their teachers as far as instructions. We ask that families partner with us, ensuring clear communication and becoming Canvas observers. That's the next thing I want to talk about. But I think it's really important to consider where we've come from. And we've spent about 5 years developing a program, and it's completely been, changed overnight, basically over the summer. So there's been a lot of changes. So Canvas parent observer counts. I wanted this early in the presentation because in my experience with Canvas, it's been really important to get more and more parents involved in the learning process. And Canvas really made this an easy process. If you would go to the Canvas website, and this is actually on the district site for the middle school, if you go to Parent and Student Resources on the district website, you'll find Canvas listed there if you ever are lost and can't find it. But that link is going to be instrumental in getting a pairing code from your child so that you can partner with us and actually take part in the learning, which is something a lot of learning management systems don't offer or haven't offered in the past. So we're asking for you, like in other online environments, that you become really the learning coaches and help support, just like face-to-face instruction, what's going on at home. And you can actually see their work and what they're submitting and give them feedback also, if you like, on understanding that we will be the teachers, but that we're really asking you to partner with us in any kind of live environment, that's important, but especially in an asynchronous environment. And we'll talk about that a little later with the exploratory classes. If you look at the Cyber Academy, it's really a virtual learning environment. So we asked students to really try their best to be independent learners during that asynchronous time. These assignments will be graded, and they will be held accountable for their work. The spring was a different time where we were thrown into something where we really had to be conscious of the fact that students really weren't given a lot in terms of, or the teachers were given a lot of time to prepare for this. So there will be tests and projects now. There will be a lot more accountability than before. And we'll still offer that support as we always have for our students to meet their success. But we're really asking students to take a real active role in their learning. And we did see that. I teach a world language, and I was just blown away about how the students actually got involved in learning. And I really was inspired in many ways how they would rise to the occasion and really get the work done and prove to really hand in quality work. So this is where Mr. Sparing could actually speak more about this, but if you want to take a look at this schedule, you'll kind of understand what kind of work was involved in this whole scheduling plan. So Mr. Sparing, would you like to add more information about that?
Sure. So as you can see on the screen, this is kind of the sample schedules for grades 6, 7, and 8. For the most part, our students that are in the online school, our Cyber Academy at Palms, they're going to follow the same schedule as if they were in school. And each core content area has a synchronous component to it. That's going to be dependent on the day and the subject area. The teachers are going to communicate that. But as you can see, what I tried to do is put this out there where things are offered. And then at the same time, there's going to be asynchronous time in the day for students as well, who for their exploratory classes, or perhaps they're working on something else, are going to have time in the day that is asynchronous. By and large, our hours at Palisades Middle School are essentially students, the buses begin dropping off at 10 after 7, and our first period class begins at 7:32. So really, in terms of attendance and compulsory attendance, we're looking at kind of that time frame of 7:30 to 2:37, even for our online Cyber Academy students. Originally, there might have been some confusion with how schedules were overlapping, so we made a concerted effort, really kind of last minute, to make sure that no core content overlaps. So if there's any questions about a student's specific schedule, feel free to reach out to me. But what I tried to highlight here is essentially with grade 6, you can see that would be a sample schedule for students, and then 7 and 8. But for grade 6, for example, they'd have online social studies period 1, the time frame is there. Period 2 is online reading. Period 3, online science. There's a short break if there's, take a break time, if there's any kind of other things, of course, to work on. Then period 4, they might have math 6 or pre-algebra. Period 5, some students might be scheduled for math 7. And then, of course, there's that, we want them, of course, have lunch and have some time frame there for anything else that's asynchronous. And depending on your individual schedule, it might look a little different, but this is an example of one. And then, of course, period 7 is the online English 6. So it would look a little different, of course, for grades 7 and 8, but overall, those are an example of what they look like across the entire building.
And I would like to add to that, as you look at these examples of schedules, the core subject areas will be synchronous, the exploratories will be asynchronous, but that does not mean that for their synchronous courses, they're going to be synchronous or live the entire time. There'll be times where teachers use that as check-ins. There'll be times where teachers use the first 15 or 20 minutes of that synchronous time to meet with students and teach their lesson and get them started on assignments, whatever it might be. So I know some concern was that students will be, in front of the computer screen the entire day. That's not going to be the case. And there's and it depends on the subject area and what needs to be taught that day. But, as you kind of look at that schedule, for example, if you look at grade 7 at 8:13, they're either going to have Science 7 online or Reading 7 online. That class will promptly start at 8:13, and they will meet with their teacher in the morning. That's when attendance will be taken. And there could be, as I said, a 10, 15, 20-minute lesson. And then from that, either the students could be given time to work on things, or they could use that time to work on assignments and whatnot. And then the teacher's there to answer questions that they might have. For math in particular, I know in talking with the math department, they have instruction they're going to do, and a lot of them are going to leave that window open for students to work on problems, and they'll be right there for immediate response to help students through that.
And Dr. Scheibenhofer, I want to thank you for sort of explaining that a little bit, because I also am aware of some concerns that I've heard out throughout social media avenues. So again, and as to reiterate as well, what Mr. Spearing said is that, as a public school district, we are required to provide a minimum of 180 days of instruction for our students. And there's also a caveat that at the secondary level, it must equal at least 990 hours per year within that time frame. And so we've been directed by the government that we have to be able to provide a template that shows that we are qualifying for the number of minutes that our students should be in school. And so again, as a parent, as a grown-up, looking at this immediately would be like, oh my gosh, like my kid's going to be in front of a screen all day. I don't want that, and neither do we. And so, as Dr. Scheibenhofer shared, as a 6th grade friend, I show up in 8:13. My teacher's going to take attendance. And to reiterate again, we might have a couple of activities to do, or maybe one day it will be a longer lecture, and that's okay. Other days it might simply be a touch point, attendance. Here's what your work is today. I'm going to be here available if you need me. And then the student, if they're done with their work, then they don't log back in until 9:01. So again, we'll come up with a flow and a rhythm. And as everyone has mentioned thus far on the call, if you're finding that there are some concerns or you're having some issues or questions, then obviously please reach out to your teachers. We're excited that we have that opportunity to have our teachers teaching because they're the best at what they do. And so to have that afforded to our students who are learning from home through the Cyber Academy is really an awesome thing that we're proud to say that we're able to do, which is unlike any of the districts of which I'm aware nearby. So thanks again for sharing those points, Mr. Spearing and Dr. Scheibenhofer.
Yeah, and that's something I heard a lot over the summer and also during the board meetings, that I'm really looking forward for Palisades teachers to teach the courses. And I'm just glad we're able to do that, because I know that our teachers really want to be able to offer these courses for the students, and it's a very challenging time for everybody. Attendance, Mr. Sperry might be able to talk more about this, but honestly, it's going to be logged in at the beginning of the day, like Dr. Scheibenhofer said. And the student will need to be logged in throughout the day. And what's going to happen if the student is not in attendance, that will be counted as an absence after 3 missed classes. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way it's going to be for an attendance absence. So like before, though, absence notes can be mailed in to Mrs. Chadwick in the student office, and that information is also available on our student website. So if there's any questions about that, I know there will be probably questions in the beginning, because that is a change from the past. In the past, it was a weekly thing where attendance was taken at the end of the week, but this is going to be daily in each subject area course. So Mr. Sparing, Dr. Scheibenhofer.
I could just follow up as I manage the student attendance. So, this is basically attendance will be taken in each class, just as if it were at school. If there's something that happens where like internet goes out or there's something going on, then parents would just need to contact the school by phone to let us know what is going on, because we realize those things might come up. And as I said, as Mr. Filling had said, theoretically, if a student misses more than 3 of their classes in a day, they are going to be marked absent for the day. Or, just as they would be at school face-to-face, they can be marked absent, half-day absent, full-day absent. So we are looking for them to make that synchronous touch with their teachers every day during that class period time. Certainly, That email to Mrs. Chadwick in the student office will suffice as a note to account for the absence. Certainly can reach out to me as well. And then definitely if there's something going on with the internet or with electricity or something like that, we'll have to accommodate that situation. Whether that means following up with, that might be the reason for the absence. Our internet was down. We had no access to the courses. Please make sure you're following up with us either with phone call or email, and then we can make those adjustments on the attendance records. Something like that would certainly be an excused absence. The work would have to be made up, but it would be an excused absence.
And I believe that the word for this, for attendance to be successful, is communication on both sides. If it would be something on our end, we would, do our due diligence to get in touch with you and communicate with you that, say, our server's down, whatever it might be, and vice versa. That communication is going to be a critical tool moving forward to keep a track of attendance and so forth. And, please let me reiterate that we know it's not going to be perfect. Sometimes the internet's going to be slow, it's going to be down, but we'll deal with those things on a fair and consistent basis as we move forward. And our goal is to have students be successful in this format.
And my experience too. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that in our building, certain time frames of the month, certain activities, we may have a different schedule at our building, which would then require our cyber students to run on a different schedule depending on what's going on that day. So, certainly our teachers will communicate with their students in those classes. If there's something where we believe it's going to be so disruptive of a schedule because we have something going on, we'll communicate that with families and we'll talk about what that looks like as an alternative for our Cyber Academy. But I wanted to put that out there because we do have things that go on. Those of you who are familiar with the middle school, we have a lot of different activities throughout the year that might change our schedule, and we kind of do that in-house with our teams. At this point with the Cyber Academy, we might need to adjust the schedule, but we certainly will keep families informed and our teachers will keep their classes informed. For example, that might be a day where it's just a check-in and there's some asynchronous work or something to that nature. So I wanted to just add that.
That's a really good point. And in the past, it was a little bit too loosey-goosey, got to say, as a teacher. It's good to have accountability, to know that you have to show up early and get the work done. I think it's just going to add to a better school day as far as managing time, just my 2 cents as a teacher. So that being said, it's really important to find a quiet space with limited distractions in the house for the student to work. That could be any quiet space where the student isn't going to be distracted by something that's going to take them off task. And you want to try to make sure that he or she works in the same place every day, so they'll have constant access to the materials they need, and just have a structured environment that they can count on to work. And if you're going to go away or something like that, if you don't have internet, like Mr. Sparing said, of course that's going to happen sometimes, but it would be really important to communicate that to your teacher. And also if it's an absence, communicate that to the office. Now, I think it's also a great idea to post a daily schedule so there is accountability, so the student knows exactly when they're due to be online, and they find out in advance exactly where they need to meet up in terms of, we're going to use Google Meet. So what's the link, what's the class, and if there's anything else that the student needs to prepare for that class, it's really good to have a posted schedule and prepare for that ahead of time. Now, the sign-in information, everything like that needs to be available. When I say everything like that, like the applications and sign-in information, it's going to be secondhand soon. And for the students, we're going to go over a lot of that on Monday for the new students. And the 7th and 8th graders are fairly used to what they need to do for that. They'll have things bookmarked, meaning Canvas and PowerSchool, and that'll probably also be saved in their Chromebook. But that information, if there's anything else that they need to have ready, should be readily available for them for use, because it's just a time waster, and a lot of time we see that in class sometimes, and we really try to help students when we're face-to-face make sure they can organize their information and their time. If anybody else, Dr. Steibenhofer or Mr. Sparing, if you want to throw anything else in too, just let me know. going to keep moving on otherwise. Okay, a Chromebook pickup took place this week in the tech office, but there will be also the way to contact is usually IT staff at palisadessd.org, and you can arrange a time with the tech office to pick up the Chromebook. I think most students from last year do have Chromebooks, and if you need it repaired, there's also a link that Donna Holmes sent out and a form that you can fill out and send that in. If you're ever unsure about a technology issue, please communicate with the tech office or the tech leaders at the school. I'm one of the tech leaders, and I'll give you also at the end of this presentation the email for Mrs. Ashton, who's in the library, who's in charge of Chromebook Central. So don't forget also Monday, those can be picked up, and hopefully we can also schedule other materials to be picked up between 1:30 and 3. Just keep in mind also we're going to have that Canvas Power School student, make sure you're ready for school the next day, orientation at 2 o'clock, Monday, August 31st. So if you can try to coordinate your day so you're getting all that done between 1:30 and 3, just realize that 2 o'clock is going to be our presentation. So if you can pick it up beforehand or afterward, it'd be great. If you can make that, I know that might be hard for some people. And then a specific schedule can be shared from the building regarding any specific materials. And I would recommend we can talk more about that on Monday about contacting teams or teachers later about whether you want to schedule a pickup for other things. It'd be nice to coordinate that together. So your teacher is really your first line of support when it comes to classroom issues in the classroom that you need things or like books or something like that. But please, remember that you can rely on other people. You can find us in either the district website or mailings regarding other questions or issues you have, including school counselor, Mr. Sparing, or Dr. Scheibenhofer. I've worked here for over 20 years. I can tell you these people really care about kids and really want to help you.
Mr. Feely, if I want a quick add about supplies, as I was talking to some of the exploratory teachers, there might be a case or two where supplies are needed for students in the Cyber Academy for Palisades Middle School. It'll be more particular in the art classes, and if that is the case, students will be notified by that particular teacher and give parents plenty of heads up notice of when their supplies are needed.
Great, thanks. Okay. So this is our contact information. My contact information, I also have that in the email that was sent out for this presentation link. But please remember, you can also find this on the district website at the middle school. It's ms.palisades, PALISD.org, sorry. And that's going to be on our school website here.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Filling and Mr. Spearing and Dr. Scheibenhofer, and for putting together the presentation and sharing out with our families. We did have a few folks who had some questions in the chat, and hopefully we were able to respond to those. Again, if you have, I saw one just pop up that if you have a question about a specific schedule, then I would recommend that you reach out to either Mr. Spearing or Mrs. Brown, our school counselor, to have a question with them about any specific needs that you might have regarding that. Again, just to reiterate, again, it might come across as being a little touchy-feely, but I couldn't be more proud of these teams, of our teachers, our support staff, our administration, and then for doing what they can to make this experience the best that they can for our students. We're going to be providing, for our students who are part of the Cyber Academy, they still receive services as they would if they were in the building to the best of our abilities. So we have our special education teachers working closely. They've been working the past few days with our general education teachers to review IEPs and to look at specially designed instruction and what modifications or accommodations are needed. There'll be adaptations to that schedule for individuals who may need those additional supports. Again, it's treating each child as an individual as best that we can. Same thing if we have students who receive, for example, we may have some students who receive speech and language pathology. And so if that's the case, then those students would still receive that as well through the person who delivers that to them. And those schedules will be worked into their schedule, so it's not overly burdensome, but just the same as it would if we were in a face-to-face setting. So no, we're working at and looking at this from all angles. We want for our students in the virtual setting to feel as close to and connected to POMs as they can, because they are Palisades Pirates, and we want them to feel that way. And so again, that's sort of the overall idea of the schedule. We listened to the community, we listened to feedback. Again, we know that the spring was an emergency situation, and a lot of good work has gone into doing what we can in order to make this situation going forward as meaningful for our students, because again, we recognize that they've been out of school for just about 6 months at this point, and we want to take some time to reintegrate them into our building, into our courses, and into what it's like to be a student at the middle school. Again, as well, welcoming our new 6th grade friends who are joining us from the elementary school next week for the first time. We're excited that the board gave us that permission to modify the calendar slightly, such that we do have that 6th grade orientation for face-to-face, and then Mr. Filling and our administrative team will also be providing an orientation for our 6th grade cyber friends to kind of, again, work through some of that. In giving them what they need and that information to welcome them to Palisades Middle School. As I mentioned at the onset of the call, there will be another survey that will go out in November. We're going to be reworking a few things to make it user-friendly for you as the grown-ups, as the parents and families, as well as then for us as we receive that data. But again, at that point in time in November, we'll work through, collect your requests for the second semester, so for the second part of the year, and then we'll design the program as best we can at that point. Based on what those numbers look like and what directions we're being given from the government so far as social distancing and things of that nature. And so again, that'll come out to you in November, mid-November as it were, and we'll kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. There will be bumps in the road, just like there would be if we were in face-to-face, but we are resilient. Palisades is an amazing community of learners, of educators, of students, and of families. We're all in this together. And we truly believe that as we continue that teamwork, we will be able to continue to educate our students the best that we can in whichever format that is, again, virtual or face-to-face. So that being said, what we can do is we do have a couple of minutes for some questions. If you feel that you have a question that is general enough for the larger group and you would like to ask that, we can do that. What we'll do is if I see your phone go off mute, which you would do by pressing *6, then I will then call out the numbers as I see them and ask for you to then share with us that question. And if you have a more individualized question or concern or something for you and your family and your student, then please reach out individually to either a teacher or to Mr. Spearing, Dr. Scheibenhofer, Mrs. Brown, and they can do their best to answer your question as well. So that being said, I'll give a little wait time and see if anyone comes off of mute at this point. For any general questions that you may still have.
I have a question.
Sure.
Were the children's schedules for middle school sent to their Power School only, or their whatever they have for an account, or was it also sent to the parents as well?
The schedules were uploaded into Power School and released a couple days ago. They were not, due to the time constraints, they were not mailed and sent out. So to view them, you would have to go on to Power School and see the schedule.
Okay, and that's for the cyber kids, correct?
That's for cyber and face-to-face kids, correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
There's something in the chat. I just wanted to respond to it, talk about the internet outages. Often we will get them, and I know parents get them too, and I know internet in this district is often something that comes and goes. We always have worked with parents as far as an email from a parent works wonders as far as clearing that up. And if it's a class and it just went down for an hour, you could email the teacher and we could contact the student office. But as teachers, we're usually, we have to take attendance at the moment. So what works best usually is just sending an email to the student office if you know that your son or daughter was absent. Am I correct, Mr. Spearing?
Yeah, essentially, if it's out, there should be a way to either email the office, Mrs. Chadwick, or even phone the school to let us know what's going on, and we will account for that. Most likely, it will look as an absence excused, because students are still responsible for that work. But beyond that, it's for coding purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And something that we will be doing as well, just so that everyone on this call is aware, is that at our last board meeting, as part of our calendar update for the year and in advance, which doesn't have as much of an implication for our Cyber Academy students. But again, as I may have mentioned, or it was in another presentation, I can't remember, so I'll say it again, is that whether face-to-face or virtual, we follow the same calendar, the same schedule. So if it is a half day of school for our face-to-face students, it is also a half day of school for our Cyber Academy students. And we'll be sharing out what that abbreviated schedule will look like. Our first half day is not until November, the week of Thanksgiving. In addition to that, which again does not have an impact on this group, but is that we will be having some remote learning days in November and December to allow that abut the vacation in those 2 months, so that we can shut down the buildings and have a larger period of time during which we don't have adults or humans in them at all. And so all of our students will be learning virtually during those days. But again, there was a question in the chat earlier about transitioning back and forth. And so our Cyber Academy students will always be with their Cyber Academy class with that teacher during those class periods, independent of what happens with our face-to-face students. And again, the only difference would then be that for half days, we will modify the schedule as a half-day schedule. But again, the calendar will be the calendar for all of our students, K through 12. All right, well, thank you so much for taking the time today to join on this call. We really appreciate, again, as I've said umpteen times, your continued support, the work that you do to help us with our students. You know, it's been an uphill battle for all of us, but we're super excited to see our friends come back to us again, whether it's face-to-face or virtually. That's what energizes us as educators. Again, we're super excited, and they're our friends Hunter and Sean. So thanks for joining us as well today, boys. And again, as we mentioned, more information is coming out from the building regarding additional orientation and activities taking place next week. And then from here, we want to wish you a great rest of the day. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. And again, can't thank you enough for being part of this team. We're all in this together, and take care.
See you Monday.
Thank you.